What is up, guys? EJ here, back with another video, and today it's going to be my DVD collection 2016 and the documentary section. So up first we have Bowling for Columbine from 2002, terrific documentary directed by Michael Moore, of course following the events of the Columbine high school shootings. Yeah. Since then, we've had a wave of mass shootings in high schools, colleges, churches, movie theaters, you name it. Since then, very relevant film still today. Up next, we have Capitalism, a love story, again from Michael Moore. This time came out in 2009. Yeah, about the American economy and the collapse of the stock market in 2008. Okay, up next we have Dogtown and Z-Boys from 2001, terrific documentary about the sort of birth of the skating culture in the 70s in Los Angeles, narrated by Sean Penn. Of course, Lords of Dogtown, the film, came out a few years later, 2005. Good movie as well. I like that film. Have that one as well. Up next we have Fahrenheit 9/11, another terrific Michael Moore documentary, one of his best, of course. Came out in 2004, following the events of 9/11, catching up with the people who worked at Ground Zero and how they're affected by it, and the families and so on. Really about the war on terrorism, all that kind of stuff. Up next we have Fire in Babylon from 2011, terrific documentary about the West Indies cricket team. Yeah, growing up in England, I watched a lot of cricket. Usually it was England getting killed by the West Indies, who had such a fantastic team in the 80s and 90s. Terrific documentary if you like cricket. Okay, up next we have The Fog of War from 2003, Errol Morris film. Yeah, really good documentary about Robert S. McNamara, guy who worked in the War Department for 40-50 years. Really good stuff. Okay, up next we have this DVD called Gollum. It was accompanied the Two Towers special edition, extended edition gift set that I got back in 2003. Yeah, it just goes into more detail about how Gollum was made and so on. Okay, up next we have Hearts of Darkness, a filmmaker's apocalypse, fantastic Oscar-winning documentary from 1991, I believe. Yeah, of course, about the making of Francis Ford Coppola's Apocalypse Now. Fantastic film. Next, we have An Inconvenient Truth from 2006, eco-friendly packaging for this film about global warming. Of course, Al Gore was heavily involved in the making of this film. Okay, up next on Blu-ray we have Life Itself from 2014, fantastic documentary about Roger Ebert, who was my favorite film critic for a number of years. Of course, goes into detail his times writing for the Chicago Sun-Times, and then hooking up with Gene Siskel on their TV show, and then his battle with thyroid cancer, which led to his death a number of years ago now. Okay, up next we have Man on Wire from 2008, a terrific documentary about Philippe Petit, the Frenchman who walked across the Two Towers back in 1974. Of course, the film The Walk, which came out last year with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, about the same subject. Really good movie. I like that movie a lot. I'll probably be picking that up soon. Up next, we have March of the Penguins. Yeah, great documentary, of course, set in Antarctica and the South Pole. Narrated by Morgan Freeman. Who didn't love penguins back in the mid-2000s? Lots of movies came out about penguins. Really good nature documentary. Okay, up next we have Marley on Blu-ray from 2012, film directed by Kevin MacDonald. Fantastic movie about Bob Marley. If you love reggae and Bob Marley like I do, he's one of my favorite artists of all time. Definitely worth watching that movie. Okay, up next we have Murderball, Another terrific documentary from 2005 about wheelchair basketball. Really intense, really interesting, great movie. Up next we have One Night in Turin from 2010, film narrated by Gary Oldman, of course about England's run in the 1990 World Cup in Italy. Yeah, the 1990 World Cup for me was both exhilarating and heartbreaking at the same time. My first real experience with English heartbreak when I was 12 years old. I remember it well, and this is a really good documentary. Even though, like the football scenes are kind of fake, the actual footage of that time and the interviews, all that kind of stuff, is really good stuff. Okay, up next we have Pearl Jam 20, PJ20 here. There you go. Great film directed by Cameron Crowe about the band Pearl Jam, who I'm a huge fan of. Fantastic documentary, that one. Definitely worth checking out. Okay, up next on Blu-ray we have Senna from 2011. Great documentary about former Brazilian Grand Prix driver Ayrton Senna, one of the best Formula One drivers of all time. He was the hated rival of my favorite driver, Alain Prost, back in the 80s. I was an Alain Prost and Nigel Mansell fan, and Ayrton Senna was just too good back then. Anyway, moving on, we have Sicko, another great film directed by Michael Moore about the American healthcare system, of course, and how it compares with other countries, especially places like Canada and England that have nationalized healthcare, of course, before Obamacare came into being. Up next, we have Side by Side on Blu-ray from 2012. Really good film that's narrated and hosted by Keanu Reeves. Goes into a lot of interviews with filmmakers comparing the use of film as opposed to digital. Yeah, really good movie if you're into filmmaking and just like seeing all these great people. Okay, up next we have Stanley Kubrick, A Life in Pictures, part of the Stanley Kubrick collection I had on DVD a while back. But yeah, really good film about Stanley Kubrick and his life, and one of my favorite directors, obviously. Okay, up next we have Super Size Me from 2004. Film, of course, starring Morgan Spurlock, a guy who famously ate at McDonald's for 30 days. And he measured the effects it did to his body and so on. Really fun documentary if you like junk food, and everybody does. Okay, up next we have These Amazing Shadows on Blu-ray from 2011, PBS documentary. Great film about sort of the history of film and archiving film, saving movies. Really good documentary from a couple years ago. And last but not least, we have Woodstock, 3 Days of Piece of Music, fantastic film from 1970, of course, chronicling Woodstock, famous festival concert in 1969 that took place in upstate New York. So there is my documentary collection. Up next will be drama, which will probably be split into 4 parts because it's my biggest section and there's a lot to get through. So until then, thank you for watching as always, and I'll see you.